Welcome, everyone. It's week 9. You know how it is next week tonight. Let's get going. So, welcome to next week tonight. Of course, I clicked the wrong thing, but here we go. It is next week tonight, week 9. I'm your host, Joshua. This is a show keeps you a week ahead of the competition. So, we're going to go. Last week, we had a lot of trades to possibly make. Um, week 9, we're going to dig into it, and you're going to see there's a lot of bye weeks. So, what we're going to do, as I usually do, we're going to go over the calls for this week really quick. We're going to blitz right through it all and then rewind it and go over each one in more detail. So, let's go. Week 9 buys. Here are the buys. Cleveland Browns. So you're missing Chubb, Cooper, and Njoku. Dallas Cowboys. You're talking about Dak, Zeke, Pollard, Lamb, Schultz. Denver Broncos. Wilson. That's Russ. Maybe. Sutton, Judy. Running backs are a little weird there, but yeah, you're missing those guys. New York Giants. So Daniel Jones, Saquon, Wandale. Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee, Deontay, Fryermuth, maybe Pickens, right? San Francisco Niners, 49ers. You got Jimmy G was borderline, especially super flex. He'd definitely be a starter. But you got CMC, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, all these guys out in week 9, 6-team bye week. So it's always going to be a rough one when it's 6. So definitely wanted to focus on those streamers this week. But first, I want to remind you of these guys: Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, Van Jefferson. Check your waivers. All right. Week 9 streamers, going to jump right into these guys. Malik Willis, right? We got Tennessee versus Kansas City. Very risky, high reward, high risk, but I think high reward rookie play. Heineke, Washington versus Minnesota if you really need somebody. And it could even be Sam Howell by then, so look out. Michael Carter for running backs. New York Jets versus Buffalo. You got Sonny Michel, Chargers versus Atlanta, and Craig Reynolds. And as always, this is in order of priority from top to bottom. Khalif Raymond for wide receivers, Detroit, Green Bay. DeAndre Carter. Honestly, I probably might even move DeAndre Carter up to the top here. Chargers versus Atlanta. And if you really need someone, KJ Osborne, Minnesota versus Washington. Kyle Pitts for tight end stream. Wait. I can't stream him. I just kind of assumed. I figured no. Still roster too much. Okay, fine. Robert Tonyan. Green Bay versus Detroit. He really he's at least finally healthy for the most part. And for defenses, the Bears, Chicago versus Miami is a decent one, but the Minnesota, if you really need somebody, you could try out the Vikings against Washington. I know it's a little contradictory because I had Heineke, but especially if it's Sam Howell at that point, you could pick on the rookie quarterback a little bit. So that's an option for you. That's it, guys. Then we're going to get back into the week 8. So if you just came around to see that, there you go. Check out the website, fusionffb.com. We'll have all the notes. So if you don't have time to watch, but you can read, you'll get the notes, which is my fuller thoughts on these takes. And then you can continue watching for the rest of it. So here we go. Like I said, these are the guys we're looking at in week 9. So Treylon Burks, they really need him right now, especially with the rookie Malik Willis starting now. It's going to be interesting to see. He's not going to have him here this first week 8 start. So it's going to be interesting to see who he relies on, who he who he needs to step up. Um, I still think Burks is good, and he could be a rest of the season thing as soon as he gets back here in the next week or two. Same thing for Jahan Dotson. We'd already seen him, but it was such a long wait, and being on IR, a lot of things going on. Bye weeks, people could have been dropped. He could have been a hard cut. So double check for him. Van Jefferson been saying it, but he's been finally designated return. So last chance. Okay. Remember how these kind of guys went last time? It was Wan'Dale Robinson. We were telling you, trying to keep you ahead of the curve, right? He's back now. Everyone's all excited about him. Easily could see the same thing happening for Jefferson. All right. These streamers. So Malik Willis, like I said, it's a high. I get it, but he's running around most likely. For what we've seen, he is a runaround. I mean, I'm thinking like Jalen Hurts, his first year, kind of thing. Probably not going to be great for his receivers, right? I'm betting on Burks getting back and becoming a high target share, receiver, and getting his value that way. Malik Willis is not going to make the wide receiver 3 relevant, right? That's what I mean. The wide receiver 1 maybe, not the wide receiver 3. So a bunch of these other guys on that team are going to probably not be getting the targets you want them to get. So I would stay away from other Tennessee receivers. But Malik Willis himself could still do well for you. Next is Taylor Heineke, Washington, playing Minnesota. Minnesota is their defense is just bad enough to allow points, but meanwhile their offense is good, so they keep their opponent needing to continue pressing. So that's a nice kind of combination. So double check though before you do it that it's not Sam Howell. You'll know here. I mean, you could add Heineke now, or just be ready to add him after this week. But keep an eye out. See how the game goes against Minnesota. If it's a disaster, then you maybe want to be targeting Howell. Running backs. Try to focus on running backs. If we go back to that bye week screen, there was a lot of running backs on bye this week, from Chubb to Najee. Up and down. Michael Carter is one. He's probably going to be sharing the reps with Ty Johnson here in week 8. So I'm guessing week 9 is going to be their first real full week with James Robinson active and playing. Maybe he's active week 8, but integrated week 9. So here's the thing. It's also a tough game against the Buffalo Bills. That means I could easily see Michael Carter being the back that they trust down to the Bills, throwing a lot. That was Brees before, but I don't think James Robinson can step into that role right away. And it's not quite his usual role. I think he can do that. He absolutely can, because he's good at pass protection and everything you want on a third down back. But it also takes a little bit more integration into the offense, and he's not going to have that yet. So I could easily see Michael Carter getting a lot of targets in this game, that kind of thing. And you tell me why running backs getting targets? He's a streamer, okay? Especially this kind of bye week. Sony Michel, Chargers against the Falcons. The Chargers just lost Mike Williams. Keenan has been slow to get back. It's just a rough situation for them right now. So with weapons thin, I could easily see Eckler getting a lot of work. If they get a good lead, I could easily see them resting Eckler. So it's kind of like either way. Either they're going to be resting Eckler because they have a lead, so Sony gets touches, Or if they really lean on Eckler that much, you could see, I could, I could see situations where you have Eckler out there basically as a wide receiver, and Sonny Michel is also in the game, because that's how thin they are. If Keenan, especially if Keenan doesn't play, all right, you're looking at, and this it's 2 weeks, so hopefully by then Keenan's good to go. He did play some, so because they're on bye week here in week 8. So they're clearly looking to come back as healthy as they can week 9. But, Josh Palmer was also beat up. I forgot to get the details about him. Um, yeah, so they could be very thin. So that means more opportunity has to go somewhere. I think Sony Michel is the guy. And Josh Kelly, the other running back, was still out last I knew. Again, coming out of the bye, maybe this all changes. So be aware, do your research, do your homework. In the recap next week's show, maybe I'll be able to update you a little bit on that situation. And lastly, Craig Reynolds, if Swift is out especially, then it's a committee between him and Jamal Williams, and he's gotten some work there. So that's about as much as you can hope for. Very similarly, Cleve Freeman, in the absence of Amon-Ra, just like in the absence of Swift, in the absence of Amon-Ra Sound Brown, we've got Cleve Freeman getting a good amount of work, both opportunity and production. So I say the last 2 weeks, they only played 1 week because they were in bye. But yeah, he had some pretty good production. Goff's not looking great. It's been a mixture of, I think, matchups, health of the rest of the team, and so on. So he can still give you random QB1 weeks, not overall, but top 12 QB. And he's going to need targets to do that. Whether it's going to be Hawkinson and Amon-Ra, depends on if they're in and healthy. DeAndre Carter, I had him on as an ad earlier originally, but then I was looking at it, and again, they're going to be missing players. DeAndre Carter could be pushed up as high as wide receiver 2 still by week 9. Decent matchup. I just kind of like this setup. And if you're a lot more desperate, KJ Osborne, Minnesota at Washington. Again, it's one of those situations where Washington is probably going to have to pick their poison, and maybe Osborne ends up getting left open, basically. Yeah, so I put Kyle Pitts on here as a bit of a joke. It's a great tight end matchup against the Chargers. They've been giving up a lot of tight end points. So I was looking through my matchups and I saw that one, and it made me chuckle. I mean, he's just not giving you points. So Robert Tonyan, though, however, he has one big game last week, so it's possible he's already been picked up, but also it's tight end. So he's finally, I'm not sure if he's fully healthy, because I think he stepped out of the game a little bit, but healthier than he's been. He's back. He's producing. Rodgers needs targets. Cobb and a bunch of other guys are out. Dubs is not doing well. So there's a lot of reasons to believe that, to think that Tunyan's going to be a real high priority target for Rodgers, because he's a familiar face and he needs people. So go to Tunyan. The Bears for defenses, Chicago Bears, they seem to keep it pretty close overall, no matter who they're playing, whether it's the Bills or the Patriots. It's not a bad defense. It really isn't. And they're actually weakest against the run. That's where teams have had the most success against them. And that's notable if you're starting a running back against them. But it's really the passing game that Miami depends on. And if you're running the ball, then you're slowing down the game, which means, like I said, they keep it close, lower points. That's kind of all goes together, right? So the Bears are keeping it close. They are giving up running back points, but that's because teams can run against them, but because they're running against them, it's not explosive, which means the points stay low. You see what I'm saying here? So the Bears are very safe streaming option. Okay. If you really need somebody to go out there, the Vikings, Washington is always a volatile opponent willing to give up, points in turnovers, whatever. And again, Heineke or maybe Howell, there might be a quarterback to take advantage there. So that was it for week 9, guys. Really focused more on the streamers, getting you some even deep options, right? In week 8, I mean, we're saying pick up Deontay Foreman. Obviously, I streamed this live and it was right as the CMC. So it says if CMC is traded. I didn't even have a chance to edit that because it just happened. So you can see there if it worked out. Hopefully you got Deontay Foreman. Chuba might get some work. Looked like he was getting some work, but now he's got some injury. He might still be back this week, but I think Deontay Foreman has shown repeatedly, both in Tennessee and now with that last week, that if you give him the opportunity, give him the work, he can be a pretty good running back. Okay. Hunter Henry, not a pretty week 7 for any Patriot, pretty much. So I'm not sure what to say there. I still like him. And he's getting the work, and it's not a terrible schedule, but man, not a high priority. I would put a higher priority on Noah Fant, and I know he didn't do anything either. He did not have a good game, but the usage for tight ends was there, and DK Metcalf is out now for at least a week or two. So Noah Fant, I still like this take. Tyquan Thornton, same thing. More of a deep league play. I was saying, guys, trade for Derrick Henry, trade for Ezekiel Elliott, trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Henry and Jimmy, that obviously still looks good. Zeke might be missing a week or two. Kind of has a beat up sprained knee. I think it just got hyperextended backward. Initially, they were saying contusion, and he was just resting, sitting out practice, but then he sat out practice again on Thursday, not just the Wednesday rest day. So there's a little bit more going on here. Pollard's going to be starting probably this week 8. You could still make this move. You could still trade for Zeke. It's not going to be. He's got about a couple matchups. But starting the week, let's see, what is that? 8. Sorry. No, he's got good matchups this week, next week are good matchups. They've got the bye week. I could easily see Zeke being out until week 10 with a week 9 bye. Yeah, it's not good. But that is going to be a time when you're going to be able to trade for him if you are a contender. And starting in week 12, 13, 14, 15, they have easier scheduled: Giants, Colts, Houston, Jacksonville. So that is for the finals. If you're in the playoffs, week 16, 17, it's Philadelphia, Tennessee. Not good matchups. But if you're looking at wanting someone to help push you through, and if you can get them cheap, I still am okay with Zeke. All right, go get, Bengals. That immediately worked out, and even bigger if you were able to get T. Higgins. Now it's, or really anyone else, maybe Tyler Boyd. We're looking at Jamar Chase being out for probably going on IR, and it could be a good month. Hopefully he's back for the fantasy playoffs. Now they're talking about second getting a second opinion? Is that because he wasn't hearing what he liked um, as far as the timeline? Maybe he wanted it shorter, or maybe it's worse than we thought. So it's really hard to tell. Rashard Bateman, Rashad Bateman got tried to play tonight, Thursday Night Football, hurt again, left the game, didn't come back. This is a tough one, guys. Probably going to take a loss on this, but again, rest of the season, it still looks good. If you can get healthy, it would still look good. Darnell Mooney, like I said, he didn't have a huge game against the Patriots, but he was involved. And if that offense is starting to pick up, Justin Fields has been a top 5 quarterback last 3 weeks. I mean, that sounds okay. And then you realize Daniel Jones is 6. I mean, it's still good. It's still points. All right. I can still see a lot there as we close out the season. Not much else to go but up. So that's why I'm saying go ahead and get him now. It could improve. Hunter Henry, already talked about him. George Kittle. Again, didn't know much about Christian McCaffrey trade. I think Kittle maintains his job. If anyone's going to be hurt by Christian McCaffrey, I think it's going to be the wide receivers, especially Debo. So that said, like, just keep an eye on it. But I do like Kittle, and maybe someone's worried about him. But he had a great game. We'll see. Yeah, this was a controversial take. I don't think you have to. My point with his take was I'm not saying sell before he does badly. I just don't think it's going to be necessarily a ton better. If you were looking to sell him at all or redo your lineup, because you're losing in a redraft, or you are transitioning to a rebuild in a dynasty, the point was this is a peak in value because it's a peak in people's hopes. Now, if a lot of people are thinking the same way as I am, they're skeptical about it, that's fine. Wait a week or two till he has another great game and then do it. And people are going to be like, oh, yeah, okay, we're good to go. But the point was nuanced. Okay, it wasn't just across the board. Oh, he's going to be terrible in San Francisco. No, not at all. Okay. He's going to get his still. If anything, he's going to get his, and others like Debo are not. All right. The point was selling at peak value, selling for the most you could get. In 3 weeks, I don't think you're going to get more for him than you can get right now. Okay. So if you're going to do it, you might as well do it now. All right. And Brian Robinson we talked about. Gibson just continues to show that he's the better, most talented running back there. All right. If you still need some bye weeks, right? I don't know what happened. Oh, here, Chiefs and Chargers are on bye, obviously. So if you still need some guys, I liked Mills. He did great in week 7, so I'm sticking with him in week 8. And Goff, we talked a little bit about. I don't know if Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be around. Cleve Raymond was an option. Obviously, would much prefer the Jared Goff streaming option with Amon-Ra, obviously. Week 8 running back streamers. McKissick. I'm not sure I love this one because it's almost like Gibson's taken from McKissick now too. But the Dontrell Hilliard, Tennessee at Houston, I do still like that a lot. Nico Collins didn't have a great week 7, but it was also because he got hurt. So I don't even know if he's going to be playing week 8, so you don't have this. But you do have Olamide, Zacchaeus. I'm still sticking with this one against Carolina. And in week 8, Daniel Bellinger got hurt in week 7, so that's out. I do like this Irv Smith one. And I think Irv Smith continues to have some decent matchups coming up. So he's a good one to pick up if you need someone. If Njoku got hurt for you, things like that. And the Colts, they did okay for us in week 7, which we'll see here. This was the week 7. We're going to recap real quick. I forgot to look up. I know Mills had a great game, but I don't not quite sure how Brissett did. I don't think he did terribly for you. DJ and Rex didn't really do much either. Nico, like I said, got hurt. Donovan Peoples-Jones put up a good 10 points. Oddly enough, it wasn't even quite the way I expected it to be. He was getting a little bit more shorter range targets, and more of them, which is fine by me. He continues to be an option, going into week 9. So just all the time. I could lock him in on this streamers page for wide receivers almost any given week. But especially in week 9, I think he's got a pretty good matchup. I'm trying to remember why I thought that. Week 9, wide receivers. Yeah, it's Miami. It's a decent matchup, 8th best overall. And yeah, Hayden Hurst. If you had him, great. And just keep playing him because the tight ends that are getting hurt. I don't know if he did much in week 7 though, but you'll want to hold on to him with the Jamar Chase news. All right, and Morale Cox. Ooh, I don't think he worked out. I'll have to double check that. But that was it, guys. Green Bay and Indianapolis, and both of them actually worked out for you. I know the Colts did for sure. Bit of a quick one this week, mostly focusing on the streamers for week 9 because of all the buys. Hit me up, guys, on Twitter at FusionFFB. A number of you have, and I love talking to you about trade ideas and everything in DMs. I'm open to it. I'm not so huge that I don't have time for you. Okay, hit me up. DMs are open. And of course, FusionFFB.com for the written notes if you need to just review them. And of course, the podcast as well. Like, follow, subscribe, whatever, all the smashing buttons, everything you're supposed to do. Thanks, guys, a lot. I will see you next week. Hopefully, you have a good week 8. It's been a rough week 7 from injuries. I have, especially with the Jamar Chase news that arrived today, I had a team that already had lost Brees and Mike Williams and Njoku, and then I found out about Chase today. So basically half of my number 1 overall most points in the league starting lineup is gone for the rest of the season or for much of the rest of the season. So that's pretty rough. Luckily, I have Saquon Barkley and Dameon Pierce, right? And Tyreek Hill and I think Godwin. So I've got some guys. I have a good lineup now. It's just not great like it used to be. But hopefully, that's why we do all the stashes and even the streamers we do, because if nothing else, you're creating depth on your team. So hopefully you have some depth. Depth is so important, guys. I have one dynasty that every time, some people get hurt. I was missing Keenan and Michael Thomas, and people just keeps on churning. I always have someone to fill in. Always have someone stepping up. Dameon Pierce, right? Hey, maybe Rashad White is the next one. He's on that team too. I have him. So depth is going to be very big to have those guys ready to go in. We talk about zero running back and all these different things, hyper fragile, anti-fragile running backs. I do usually lean more towards in your typical format of leagues. I'd rather have a bunch of running backs that I can just play whoever's healthy and whoever has the best matchup. I'd rather have that than try and just draft one good one and then fill in with a ton of who knows backups. It might work out for you, but it's nice to have a Jonathan Taylor mix in, some really strong options, and then you can fill in with depth behind. filling in with those guys is not specific or special to zero running backs, right? Everyone could draft these guys at the end. And that's what I tried to focus on. That's why I try to get you guys next week, a week ahead of time, so you can pick these guys up early, because anyone can do that. Anyone can do that no matter what your draft strategy was, right? You'll be able to go pick up, Wandale. Well, he's not a running back. So I guess I should have said a running back. But you'll be able to have these guys ready to go. Sony Michel's, in case Eckler goes down. Well, you just had him as a streamer if you needed him, right? Always be filling in the end of your bench. So again, stashes for when you move guys to IR and now you have more roster spots. Sony Michel is the kind of guy, even if you have no intention of ever streaming him, you want on your bench if you have a space for him, just through the weekend games, just in case something happens. Handcuff your team, your guy, or other people's running backs. I don't care. I like handcuffing other people's running backs because they usually have enough to back up and fill in for my own already. But if you are thin on running back, then maybe it does need to be yours just so you have that assurance. That's not how I roll, but maybe that's just how it worked out for your team. All right, guys. Good luck. Week 8. We're on to week 9. I'll see you in week 10 next week on Next Week Tonight. Have a good night.